The truth occurs. The truth occurs. The truth occurs.
With Sonia and Karen. So welcome back to the show, Isabel. We're talking to Isabel, who's a lawyer from Venezuela, as I mentioned earlier, who is willing to answer your questions about anything you'd like to know if you get yourself in a conundrum with a credit card or a collection agency or whatever, or the police. Isabel is here to help, although she is not giving legal advice. This is a disclaimer. This is not legal advice, although I'm not sure what kind of advice it is in that case, but just
Lawful.
to be safe.
It's lawful advice.
Ah, there you go. She's got it figured out. This is awesome. Isabel, lawful advice. That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
So,
Lawful. Before we were talking about the about bills coming from the cable subscriptions, your cell phones. We know banks are corrupt and that they I've been reading about how the banks like to make us think that they're lending us money when we sign credit card applications. But I know with my credit card, I'm in this whole rotting place now with my credit card. They're just taking pulling money out of my account and just paying interest off of the. It's starting to suck me dry a little, and I'm wondering what kind of recourse I have with Visa when they send me a bill, because ultimately they didn't lend me any money. We know the money's fake. Do you have any remedy that you're familiar with when it comes to credit cards?
Well, yes, that money didn't exist until you signed for it. That's true. Absolutely true. And we are operating in debt notes instead of currency. But this is a practical problem. I've talked about this before because I agree and know that it's a fact that the money didn't exist before. The problem is that you, by signing a certain type of contract, you gave your word. As in, you gave your word to abide and agree as a consenting adult to certain terms.
But they did not provide full disclosure, though. And that's where my big problem lies.
Well, that's the thing now. Now, you can actually fight, and I am using very intentionally the word fight, your case. You can oppose to them. Before you take an illegal action, by the way, you should always try to solve it outside of court. 2 reasons. One, going to court sometimes is not that fun. But second, if you eventually go to court, that's a point in your favor. You try to solve this thing. And if you try, the judge is going to have the consideration that you're actually acting in honor. So, with the credit cards, you can do 2 things. You can do the very radical acceptance for value payment and see if that works.
oh, accepted for value. Okay, this comes up a lot. Can you tell us about what is that?
Well, that bill, when you sign something as a credit card statement, you're creating that money because if you think about it, when you go to the bank and you ask for a loan, for example, they're not actually taking out money from a magical vault and depositing in your account. That's not happening. It's just a matter of playing with numbers on an accounting side, Excel sheets. So before you physically walked into a bank, the universe of that bank didn't have your amount of money. When you sat down and you signed your loan, you created that money because you are promising the bank to pay that money. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had just asked that, how do banks create money out of thin air? So it's basically with your signature. You signed for it. Sorry?
You are the gold. You are the natural resource. Banks don't create money. You do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, the problem there, the conundrum, is that you actually, when you sign the creation of the money, you actually sign a lot of terms, regulations, and agreements. You can fight that claim if you say that you were falsely led into signing a contract that you thought it was otherwise. Yes. You can actually ask a judge to tell the credit card company what's the capital of your debt. Because what happened is that credit cards make a lot of money with people who owe money. Because if you owe $200, but you never use that credit card again, in a year you're probably going to owe $5,000 for interest charges and late fees. So they're making a lot of money. Rate. They're making a lot of money out of you because now when they sell your debt to a creditors agency, for example, they're selling that debt on the $5,000 charge, not the actual $200. Do you have a lawful recourse? Yes. After you oppose to whatever you're doing with the company directly, or you accept it for value, you can go to a court and say, this is unjust. Because now that I into this infinite debt when I'm honoring my intention to pay. I spent, say, $200, and now, because I was late, because whatever happened in my life, they're charging me $5,000 over late fees. That's not honor.
But isn't that part of what you agreed to when you signed up for the credit card, that you'd have a certain interest rate?
But your lawful recourse you still have access to, because that's admiralty law. You're honoring and you're calling the dishonor and the corruption, you could say, and the abuse of power of a big corporation over you. Because they cannot make 400 profit on your head. It's called usury. They're abusing power.
But isn't it legal for them to charge? I mean, not that I think this is a good thing, but I just really want to understand. So let's say you originally you bought $200 worth of something, and then down the road it's accrued to $5,000, and it's all interest on money that didn't exist in the first place, and all the credit card company had to pay was $200. So you go to the bank and say that this is fraudulent. I mean, isn't that just how credit card companies work?
Well, sadly, it's not fraudulent because the governments are backing up the banks. So in the big spectrum of the law, it's not. But if you go to the small picture and you go to a judge and say, no, who are these people to charge $5,000 over me? You always have the recourse, always. And
but what do you have to tell the judge?
This is first of all, you have to prove your intention of honoring your debt.
The debt being the $200.
What?
The debt being the original $200.
Exactly. Or let's say $200 plus administration fees, whatever, in the logic limit. Meaning somebody signed your thing, somebody put it away, somebody put it into the computer. So, okay, let's say it's $300 your capital debt. And now you were late because something happened. If you prove to the judge that you tried to pay and you couldn't, or that your whatever happened in your life, and you try to contact the company in order to resolve the issue, you are being an active part on that agreement. So whatever over interest they're making out of you, you can fight it. Yes, you can never think that they have power, such infinite power that you cannot oppose it. You can't. Now, is it going to take time of you at a court? Yes, but that's the kind of things we need to do more. You need to make a statement. I won't let that credit company, make me pay for the next 30 years. No, I won't.
I just don't see, how does the judge rule that you don't have to pay based on what, though? Because your agreement says you're going to pay a certain amount of interest.
No, it has.
You let that thing run for 5 or 10 years, and then you say, oh, look, I've got all this debt now, and I don't want to pay it. But they would turn it over to a collection agency before it went that long, wouldn't they?
Some credit card companies don't, because they're so powerful. They don't need collection agencies. They have so much customers that it doesn't matter how many customers their stock is never going to go down. So okay. Some credit card companies won't. But it has happened. There's a documentary called Maxed Out about the credit and the economical situation of credit. you will see there that it has happened. A judge ruling that sometimes is just obscene and vulgar.
To charge that much.
The same way corporations have lobbies in Congress and in Washington, D.C., we should have for ourselves. And our best lobbyist is you going to court and telling the judge, this is unjust. I'm here to honor my dad, but this is vulgar.
Okay. And what about accepted for value? How does that work?
Well, it's controversial, and I cannot say I have a degree in economical or banking system. But if you recognize when you get, for example, a credit card statement, if you see the slip of payments, it kind of sort of look like a check. Sort of, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this theory that if you stamp it or sign it and you say acceptor for value, return for payment, and say your social insurance number and your signature in blue or red, as long as it's not black, because your signature creates the money in the first place when we're talking about credit, that instrument there just turned into currency. You gave it the value of whatever you put there, because if you see on that slip, there's a space where you put how much you're going to pay. So by signing there, you created the value of that paper just by currency. Now,
so you put it in the box where they say specify the amount that you're going to pay. You would just put that in there, put your signature in there.
No, you put the amount that you're going to pay. You put the amount of the value you're going to give to that piece of paper. And then in the instrument, because now it became an instrument, you put acceptor for value, meaning I accept that this paper now, it's valued at $200 because I put $200, and now I'm returning it for payment to you. Because
where do you write this?
The same way that when you ask for a loan, you sign that contract, and it's your promissory note on paying, that signature created that money. This is a theory that says, well, that signature in that instrument that was provided by the company to me, it's making that money. The thing that is very interesting about this when I started reading it is why on earth a company will send you that slip of paper if there was not any value. Because they could just send you, like a normal statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to send you that slip. In the 21st century, you don't need those numbers to know where that money is going to. All you need is your cell phone number if you're paying a cell phone, your credit card number if you're paying your Visa. We're in the 21st century, and the other interesting thing that is happening is now companies are asking you, do you want to be green and you want to pay your bills online? Because in the moment that you're agreeing to pay your bills online, you are waiving the benefit of receiving that instrument by mail.
Mm-hmm.
So is it true? I know people who've done it and it has worked, but I don't know if it has worked because somebody looked at it and say, whatever, I'm not going to go into the trouble of replying, so waive the losses, or if it's actually true.
But they probably can't. They probably can't use that credit card anymore after that, though.
Yeah, that's the thing, that you will have a red flag on your note. Whatever, if it's because it's true, and then you will have a red flag, or is it because they think you're crazy, you would have a red flag anyways?
You were saying how accepted for value is controversial, but before you were describing how writing letters is very effective in getting the job done. Now I'm wondering, if you were to just send the credit card company a letter asking for a validation of the debt, an actual accounting, asking them for also a verification of their claim against me, either in the form of a sworn affidavit or a signed invoice, and a copy of the contract binding both parties. And if you stipulate your intent to pay, provided these things, could you think theoretically you could void your credit card debt without being red flagged?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely yes. I know that this works, the letters of validation, because these are big companies that need to turn a lot of money, and they pay their agents and their workers not very much money to get a lot of money back. The moment you are giving them extra work, most of the time they dismiss you. They dismiss your case because you're going to cost more money than they're going to be able to collect upon you.
Okay.
So it's basically always about money and the power of your saying, your power, where you stand in front of them. Because, yes, I'm going to pay you, but please validate for me. If you want to look it up on the Internet, look validation letter. Usually you have to look it under creditors' agencies. That's where you'll find the template. But you're just stating your power over corporations. You're standing as a legal entity saying, fine, but prove to me what I owe, and then we'll go from there. Because what if I go into your house and I say, hey, Sonia or Karen, you owe me $300, what will you say to me?
Prove it.
Exactly. So why is it any corporation differently?
Okay.
They're not.
Well, it makes sense. Makes sense.
We are just in this flow of paying bills. So we became debtors. We become the victims and the passive members of society. But really, your place in this world is to be the active member of society. That's how they call you, right? You should be the creditor of your power, your money, your gold, your time, however you call it. So, like, I understand it's not easy when you have a financial illusory situation that tells you that you're broke and the world is broke. But the truth is, there's a lot of money out there because there's a lot of us. If we start claiming back that space in the world that belongs to you, your situation will immediately improve and will exponentially improve. Now, don't fight, because you don't have to claim your rights. They are yours. It's you who's giving it away. So when people say, I'm going to fight the company, no, don't fight. You don't have to fight. That takes a lot of energy. Just stay your ground. Absolutely stay your honor and your ground, and to be treated with honor and respect.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's all we got.
You've been giving us... Oh, sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Well, I was just going to say, you've been giving us a lot of good practical advice. Personally, what I would do is download this episode and listen to it again, because when I hear these things for the first time, it's like a lot of it, it's hard for me to understand. I mean, it's been, months Karen's been talking about these things, and in the beginning, I used to just be like, oh, not those riddles again, the free man riddle, But, after a while, it does start to make sense when you start to understand the bigger picture of how all this works. But we're so much in the mindset that we're victims and that we're like chattel and we're totally disempowered. We're at the mercy of these corporations. That's what disempowers us. But then, in fact, we actually have still a lot of power, at least when it comes to financial stuff. Maybe you could come on some other time and tell us about, how, if there's a way that, people in the States can, place yourself out of jurisdiction for whatever it is, whether it's refusing a vaccine or it's paying income tax and all these things, because I know people do that, drive without a license. But just from the financial end, this has been pretty enlightening because I had no idea that, you could actually renegotiate things like that. It seemed to me like... You
can renegotiate every aspect of any contract that you go into, even with the government. If you owe taxes to the government and you negotiate a way of payment, they cannot reject it. They can only renegotiate.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the government says that you owe a certain amount of money, is there a way to contest that?
Yes, absolutely. You can ask for proof just like with any corporation. But what I'm saying is that if the government says you owe $300 in taxes and you send them a letter saying, this is the validation of my debt, I owe you $300, here, please find attached 12 post-dated checks of $10 a month or whatever it takes, they cannot say no because you are paying.
Oh, so you don't have to pay in a lump sum. Which is the impression that we get. Oh, you get this notice, you have to pay that. You can actually tell them, that's fine, I'll pay you that. I'll pay you $10 a month for the next 30 years.
Yes.
Oh.
And
Well, see,
then
that's good news.
the only thing they can do is renegotiate your negotiation.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Isabel, and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
And I'll put your blog address again in the chat room. Thanks everybody for joining us in the chat, and have a great weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday.